Hey, what's up, guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. I've talked about this idea of how virtual reality is opening up a gateway into the spiritual realm. And I know it sounds fantastic and a little bit crazy, but if you look at what digitization is doing and how the electromagnetic grid is being formed all around us, it becomes pretty clear that something is really going on. Now, I found this interview on the Leak Project channel. It's called People Are Seeing the Machines That Control This Reality, 5G Matrix and ETs Talking Through World Web. And it interviews Lynn Williams, who is a shamanic healer and etheric implant and negative energy remover and, kind of new agey or whatever. I'm going to play a clip for you of her talking about not just how this technology itself has become something to enhance the communications with these entities, but her experience as well, which I will say just from the beginning, think is messing around with fallen spirits and demonic entities. And I mean, she even talks about the reptilians being in her room and all this stuff. I think she's dabbling with entities that don't have her best interest in mind. That's just my opinion. I've never talked to Lynn Williams, and I'm sure she would just call me, a fundamentalist, Christian, radical, whatever. But I don't know. Those conversations would be great to have. In any case, listen to this clip because I think parts of her experience with these things is real. So it's not so much that I'm dismissing her story. I'm just sharing my perspective on it that I think, based on the Bible and what it tells us with 2 Corinthians verse 14, where it says, "No wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light." Well, that word disguises is the Greek word metaschizmazo, which means I change the outward appearance, transfigure, adapt. In other words, shape shift. Okay, so this idea of shape shifting is actually in the Bible. The definition of this word is to change in fashion or appearance, transform, figuratively applied, disguising, disguises. So obviously, if you put on a costume, that's one thing as well, but we're talking about Satan and his fallen angels here. So something to consider. But again, I'm talking too much here. Check out this clip.
My friend was in Silver Lake. I was in Marina Del Rey, California, and we had this friend down in Sao Paulo. And we started noticing over the Skype line, these weird mechanical sounds would come in. And I'd say, "What's that?" And the gal down in Sao Paulo would say, "Oh, that's the ETs." And I'm like, "No way." And she said, "Oh, yeah, they're talking to us." And I have come to find out, by the way, that they do use technology as a conduit. I've done another talk on that with another interviewer about how the interface of technology allows these beings to come through even more. And so what would happen is I would go into this light trance. I'd be sitting in my office chair listening on Skype, and I would start to trance out a little bit. And so we'd Skyped a few times. They came over a few times. Each time we'd kind of trance out. And my friend down in Sao Paulo, Lily, would say, "Oh, yeah, they're back." And she would start actually talking for them. Now, again, I was very skeptical about this, but I was open-minded. I've always been very open-minded. And so one night, the three-way Skype we had an introductory offer for three-way Skype, and that had expired. One of us didn't want to pay for doing a three-way call anymore. So anyway, long story short, my girlfriend in Silver Lake was talking to the one in Sao Paulo, and she rings me up on the phone and says, "You've got to get on the phone right away. Our friends are here." And I could hear in the background over her Skype line, these friends are here, right? The sounds are coming over the Skype line. Next thing I know, she says that something is crawling up her back, like a massage roller is going up and down her spine. But there's no one in the house with her. Her pets are across the room. And I'm, again, very skeptical, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I believe these two. Maybe this is going too far. So I'm laying on my bed with the earpiece from my phone in the ear, listening to these two over here on Skype. And the next thing I know, she stops and says, "Oh my gosh, that feeling just stopped." And at that point, the feeling was in my chest. And it felt like two little baby hands were squeezing my heart. And I flipped out. In fact, I was speechless, and I just went, took a deep breath. And at that point, the gal in Sao Paulo goes into one of these monotone voices as she's translating for them. And she says, "It's okay, Lynn, just relax. They're working on you now. They're going to open up your chakras." And I was like, "I know, I can feel them in my body. What are they doing?" And they moved down to my ovaries, and they kind of squeezed those. And then they moved up to my throat, and I could feel squeezing in my throat. It didn't hurt. I was wide awake. And then the next thing I know, I felt them go up to my forehead. And at that point, I passed out for an hour. So I never saw them in my room. I never even heard them. I just felt them in my body. So I pass out for an hour because I had the clock right by my bedside as I'm lying on the bed. I wake up an hour later, and I feel like I've been drugged, like I'm just coming out of anesthesia. And I'm like, I got the earpiece still in my ear for the phone. And I said to my friends, "Are you there? Are you there? I don't know what happened. I passed out." Well, they all went out as well. And so my girlfriend in Silver Lake she's all groggy too. And she's like, "What just happened? I fell asleep. I don't know what happened." So all three of us were knocked out. The gal down in Sao Paulo is still speaking in that mechanical voice. And she says, "It's okay, Lynn. when they work on your pineal and pituitary gland, they have to knock you out. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And I felt so drugged. So I said, look, I got to hang up the phone and go to sleep. I can't keep my eyes open. I don't know what these things did to me, but I'll figure it out tomorrow. I got to go to sleep. Hung up the phone, passed out. An hour later, I hear those mechanical sounds that have been coming over the Skype line. They're now in my bedroom, in the room, like coming out of nowhere, right? And I wake up, sit straight up in bed and like, holy crap. And the only aliens I could remember ever really seeing, because I didn't watch a lot of sci-fi, were the little gray aliens. So I'm figuring I got little gray aliens in my room. Turns out they were not the grays. They're higher level dimensional beings, and I actually think they're my homies. They're where I was before I volunteered here. So they're good. They're good guys. And it was time to wake me up. It was time to have me get on my mission. What did I come here to do? And so anyway, I'm hearing the sounds in my room, and I look over in my office to see if it's coming out of my computer. My computer sound asleep. So all of a sudden I start getting pulled off the bed. Like something is pulling me off the bed over to sliding glass doors. I had a balcony off my bedroom overlooking the pool area. I lived in a multi-story townhouse overlooking a pool. And I'm being called to open up the drapes, open up the sliders, and go out on the balcony. And I am scared to death, absolutely scared to death. So I walk over to the, well, they carry me sort of. I'm sort of floating. I can't explain it. It's like I'm walking, but they're pulling me at the same time. I get over to the drapes, and I'm too chicken. I'm absolutely flipped out. I'm crying by now, scared out of my wits, don't know what I'm about to see. And I run back over to the bed, and they pulled me even harder. And the sounds in the room got louder, these mechanical sounds. And I pulled off the bed again, and I'm over to the sliding glass doors. And I know I have to do it, so I just muster my courage. I pull back the drapes, open up the sliders. There's nothing there. So now I'm curious, like, okay, where are they? Where's the ship? Where are the little gray aliens? I go out on my balcony. The entire area, it sounds like it's coming out of the sky, are these mechanical sounds. And all of my neighbors are asleep. It's now midnight. Nobody has their lights on. It's deafening how loud it is. So I think I'm crazy. I'm like, am I having a schizoid break? What the heck is going on? So I run into the house and I call my friend in Silver Lake, and I wake her up and I say, just tell me you can hear this. Tell me I'm not crazy. And so I bring the phone out onto the balcony, and she's all excited. She's like, oh my God. She said, they're there. She said, can you see a ship? Can you see the aliens? I said, no, I can't see anything. That's the trippy part. Well, I started to get that wave of sleepiness come back over me again. So I said, I don't know what's happening, but I got to go back to bed. I ended up sleeping till the morning. When I woke up, those sounds were still in the air. Okay. They went on until 4 o'clock that afternoon. I had neighbors down at the pool that were sunning themselves. And I'm like leaning over the balcony because they were all my friends. I knew all my neighbors. And I'm like, hey guys, can you hear all those sounds going on in the air? And they're like, what are you talking about? Hey, Lynn, come on down and have a beer with us at the pool. So I go back inside. I call my friend and I said, I think we're crazy. I can't, my neighbors can't hear a thing. And I'm hearing them clear as day. So we Skyped with my friend in Sao Paulo that night to try to figure it out. And what she said is, she said, well, of course they can't hear, Lynn. All of your gifts are open now. You can hear them because you can hear into other realms. That's what they did. They woke you up. It's time for you to get on your mission. And I started crying again, just bawling tears. And I said, why did you do this to me? I don't want this. And she started laughing. She said, I didn't do this to you, Lynn. You did this to you. This is your higher self. It's time for you to wake up. You just got some help. It's time for you to get on your mission. Well, from that day forward, my life changed. I could hear into the other realms. I could see, I had reptilians in my house. I had black helicopters over my house. I was meeting strange people talking to me about coming to Mars. I was being invited into groups like Carrie Cassidy at Project Camelot. I mean, it was bizarre, and it was just happening rapid fire, rapid fire, rapid fire.
I gotta jump in real quick. You said that you saw reptilians in your house. What is that like?
Well, it was scary the first time it happened, and I didn't see them all the way bled through. They were semi-bled through. So what I saw was, first of all, my animals picked them up. I had 2 cats. And the cats would see them and go cower under the furniture. So I knew I had something in the house. And then I know this sounds bizarre, but I was having so many strange things happening. I was having so much energy in my house, so many different types of beings. I couldn't see them all clearly, but I could feel them. My clairsentience was through the roof. So I kind of made a deal with the good guys. Again, I really believe that it was the good guys that woke me up. I still don't know for sure who they are. I get ships over my house to this day, little plasma ships. They pop, all the lights go off when I pop out there in my yard. They're waving at me. They're coming over my house. They're beaming lights at me. In fact, James Gilliland up in East Eddy Ranch has video of these little, I call them little plasma ships. And again, I think those are the higher dimensional good guys. Somehow, and I think this is partly the reason we have so much technology on the planet now, is it becomes a conduit, a highway, if you will, for these beings to be able to come into our domain with different sounds. And again, it would take me a while. I wasn't prepared prior to the interview. I didn't know we'd be talking about all of this, but I have recordings of reptilians. I have recordings of mantis beings that have come over the Skype line with my clients. And then I'm about to play you a few seconds of very similar sounds to what I heard that night. Okay. And I talked to a guy up in Canada who is an ancient language expert and an extraterrestrial language expert. Tobias, I'm trying to think of his last name. But anyway, he said that my guys were so high level that they sometimes will either use technology or they may even use the grays, which are kind of like automatrons. I mean, they're not real soul beings. So just like the reptilians can use the grays for things, that these higher level beings can come through the grays, kind of take them over and come through. So I don't know how this, I don't know that this language is directly from the higher level beings. Does that make sense? They may be using some sort of filter. So when it comes through Skype, it sounds like this. Not sure. But I also heard it in my bedroom. This is exactly what I heard. So I'll play a few seconds of it, okay?
Great.
Well, anyway, that is, another story with this is I have another recording with a slightly different frequency. Now, here, all joking aside, I was Skyping one night with a crystal child. She's the daughter of a dear friend of mine, and we're Skyping and catching up with each other, and they came over again. This time, though, they were much more intense and frantic sounding, and it turns out she did understand them. I mean, this is a kid. She had experiences of bilocation. She can move energy. She's a really profound child, and so she's listening to them, and she said, "Lynn, I can understand them." So we have actually 29 minutes on that one where she actually dissected what they were saying over the. She was typing on Facebook chat and giving me messages of what they were saying as they were talking to her. Pretty trippy, huh?
That is trippy.
You want to hear a little bit of that?
Oh yeah, please, as much as you're willing to share with us, absolutely.
Okay, now this one, you're going to hear her typing probably in the background. So when you hear that tap, 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 that's her typing on the keyboard, trying to keep up with what they're saying.
So there you go. People are having these experiences and thinking that they're communicating with the higher self and these higher spirits. I would really sincerely suggest or ask Lynn Williams to test the spirits, to first repent and ask Jesus Christ into your heart, and then test these spirits. What do they say about Jesus? And maybe she's actually said something about that somewhere. I mean, I would assume that if she's done this work, she's commented somewhere about Jesus. So maybe if somebody knows about that, leave a link to an interview or her podcast or videos or whatever, where she might talk about that. Again, this is not a witch hunt. This is just, engaging in conversation, a response to something that's out there publicly, not trying to start beef with anybody. But I do want to share sort of my take on these things because it's out there. And obviously a lot of people are experiencing something like this or are interested in these experiences. Seeing that this video has over 138,000 views right now, and given the fact that we are living in a time where there are so many other things happening, all of a sudden, Tom DeLonge and his organization about space and technology, the fringe stuff, and Podesta even endorsing it. I mean, these folks are using it as a distraction on one hand. But on the other hand, it's like, what is it? Why are they so comfortable? Maybe they have some kind of card they're going to play with this alien deception that's going to be very powerful. And, they have some sort of technology behind it and the entities behind it to roll out this massive, massive psyop. So just a heads up, if you're encountering something like this, as L.A. Marzulli always says, rebuke first, ask questions later, especially with these types of encounters. And you can always go to 1 John 4 and look at how we are taught to test the spirits. What makes the difference between a spirit that is for God and a spirit that is antichrist? Well, it's the admission that Jesus came in the flesh. So just a short little snippet of stuff happening that I wanted to comment on. We are building the demonic web, and we are allowing these demonic entities to manifest a lot more through these devices. And I think once the integration is attempted, where, you have microchips or whatever, we're really going to be fusing with demons, iron mixing with miry clay, but they won't cleave to one another. And just to add one extra piece of data to this conversation, I found a website called the Next Nature Network, and here's what they say. Virtual worlds, printed food, living cities, and wild robots. We're so surrounded by technology that it's becoming our next nature. It may sound abstract, but it's closer than you think. Cars will drive themselves, and heart valves are 3D printed. How not to lose sight of the human factor? Next Nature Network is the international network for anyone interested to join the debate on our future, in which nature and technology are fusing. Wow. They just straight up tell you. And they have pictures here: meat, ice cream cart. Interesting. Nano supermarkets. This is the Forward to Nature event. And this is the Meet and Future Expo at Cube Design Museum. And it's really fascinating that they would have the triple N's, the NNN, Next Nature Network. And whether this is a terrible coincidence or not, I think there is a spiritual imprint here, because the letter N has some interesting things associated with it. It is the 14th letter on the Roman alphabet, and it originates as the Phoenician symbol Nun, adopted by the Greeks as Nu. And what is the letter Nun? It is the 14th letter of the Semitic abjads, including Phoenician Nun, Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, Arabic. And it also gave rise to the letter in Greek, Etruscan, Latin, and Cyrillic. And the origins: Nun is believed to be derived from an Egyptian hieroglyph of a snake. The same N in the Hebrew word for the serpent, Nakash. And I'm sure you guys have some different factoids to add to that interesting coincidence of the triple N's, the triple snakes, which is, again, if anything, a spiritual imprint of what's going on here. So this idea of the virtual world and the physical world merging and becoming one and having this sort of organic nature to it, it's not crazy talk. This is actually what they're trying to do, what they're building. This is what transhumanism is about. This is what control mechanisms with smart cities and everything is about. They want to create these human organisms, brains, centralized clusters of people that live in close quarters and are highly controlled, but, perhaps even highly functioning because they get to tap into the information network. And in that process, what do they give up? Do they give up their souls? The Bible says that those who take the mark and worship the image are doomed to eternal torment as their smoke of torment rises forever and ever. So I think we're closer to these realities than people think, and the imprints are everywhere. I don't have to make things up. This makes sense with the second beast rising out of the earth. Perhaps this network will be a huge part of how the image and the mark of the beast will be deployed and controlled. So that's all I have. Thanks for checking out the video. I appreciate all you guys who are supporters on Patreon. Shout out to you guys. Have an awesome day. God bless.